Hello, I'm Robert, and you're welcome here in my busy little shop. On today's episode of What's on My Workbench, I'm in Pendleton. I came up for the Leather Trade Show. There are, there are 4 major trade shows a year, and I've attended, this will be my third location that I've attended. And we're in Pendleton, beautiful part of the country. And it's really close to Steel Stamps Inc. And I thought I would take just a moment and we're going to talk a little bit about Steel Stamps, his business, why he does what he does, and why it might be a good fit for your tool selection. And I'm just going to step around behind the camera to keep an eye on things and let Tim take it from there. Okay, so Tim, I appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your time to talk about Steel Stamps. I think it's something that you're really passionate about. I love my steel stamp, and start where you want to and talk about steel stamps, how you got in the business, and what you like about your stamps.
Sure. I'd spent a number of years in the corporate world and decided it was time to follow the dream of doing something on my own. Looked around for about a year for a business I wanted to acquire. I wanted to buy something established, and I ended up with this business. What I liked about the business, they'd been in business already for about 30 years. They had a reputation as being one of the best stamp makers in the business, and so that appealed to me. So we got into the business, and same great stamp. We've improved on it a little bit through some of the processes, become more efficient, but by and large, it's a stamp that we've been making for 25, 30 years.
Cool. Yeah, so I know there's a wide range of stamps out there available. I've seen brass stamps, I've even seen plastic stamps, and the steel stamp. Tell me why you think the steel stamp's the right way to go.
Yeah, it's really just about value proposition, and we have a value proposition. A plastic Delrin stamp has a plastic or a value proposition. A brass two-piece stamp has a value proposition. None of them are necessarily bad. They're just different. What we sell is a lifetime tool, but more importantly than lifetime tool, really is ease of use. These stamps, because of the way they're cut, because of the way they're weighted, and you can see the heft and girth here. The camera probably won't zero in on the detail.
Let me get a little closer look at that so they can see.
They're crisp and they're sharp, and all of that combines to really reduce or eliminate the possibility of bounce and getting double images. So when you finish that project that you've put all that time and effort into, the odds of you getting a suboptimal stamping are going to be considerably less. So that's really what we're selling. Lifetime tool, great, you can never wear it out. The others have a life. More importantly, ease of use. These are just easier to use. They are more expensive. A lot more goes into a steel stamp, but that is what you're paying for.
Yeah, I like the heft. There's, it feels like there's like a pound there, and there's plenty to hold on to. It's not a thin rod or anything like that. There's plenty to get a hold of when you go to strike that.
Yeah.
And myself, when I think of stamping leather, I think a lot of times as the tools we use for flowers and such. And there, a lot of times you're making repetitive stamps to create the effect you're looking for. I consider this like a once and done stamp, and the heft of it helps me to feel secure in doing that.
Yeah. And then this is a 1-inch tool, and when we get above 1 inch, just because we don't want you to have to handle so much mass, then we start machining the tools, right? If we didn't machine this tool, you'd have a piece of steel out here like this. So at a certain point, you just have to start machining them, which makes a beautiful tool. People love this. One advantage, however, of a dimensional tool like this is it really helps you index the image, right? So there's advantages of both, but just wanted to explain why we machine at a certain point.
Well, so Tim, let me ask you a question. So a lot of my viewers they're country proud. They're proud of the U.S. There's nothing wrong with import items, but they like to feel like everything they're doing is, to their country. And so I guess let me know what parts of this, I'm assuming that some of this is U.S. made. Can you tell me a little bit about how U.S. bound your company is? process?
Sure, sure. Yeah, well, the primary ingredient obviously is steel. So our suppliers are U.S. U.S.-based suppliers. There's some other materials as well, minor materials. They all come from the U.S. Our machinery and equipment comes from the U.S. And our people are in the U.S. Right there in Boise, Idaho. We make what we sell. We don't contract anything out.
Cool. So I think a lot of people like see people selling stamps and they kind of wonder a little bit about the process. I guess let me ask you. So take me through the design steps and how do I go about getting a stamp? So if I've got an idea, do I just sketch that on paper, or do you need some type of specific file to create my stamp?
Sure, sure. We can approach it different ways, Robert. The easiest, most efficient way for me is to fill out the online form I have, which basically asks you what you're looking for, gives you a place to ask questions, it gives you a place to fill in the contact information, which we're ultimately going to need if I'm going to give you make a stamp for you. But with a steel stamp, with a custom-made stamp with us, there's a lot of back and forth. We're going to put together a proof and a work order outlining the details of what we're going to do. And you're going to look at that and approve it. And sometimes you give us your thoughts, you give us your ideas, and we'll run with that and we'll say, here's what you were thinking, here's another way to look at it. Or what you were thinking simply won't work, here's why it won't work, but here's an alternative that we can look at, okay? So I was thinking about this the other night, and I think of all the man hours that go into getting a stamp to my customer, and it's roughly 1/3 of our total man hours is me going back and forth with the customers and then working on refining, adjusting art to get it in good shape, to get it ready for production. So a lot of effort goes into the back and forth hand holding. You can't automate all that. Some people try, and there's a lot. I know even when you're going back and forth live, there can still be confusion. So it takes a lot of work to make sure we're getting what we need and what the customer wants.
Okay. A lot of the people in my leather world, I think of leather as art. It's just a different art form. But a lot of people, I think, are very artistic, and when they're developing a nice sheath or such, I think a lot of times they start off by creating a sketching of what they want. So with that thought process in mind, I'm thinking of there's got to be dozens of desks right now, people that are watching this video that have roughly sketched out on a napkin or a scrap piece of paper what that stamp needs to look like. If they just take a picture of that, how easy is it then to take that picture and send it to you and then get that stamp back? Sure.
There's degrees of sophistication to a logo, and more simple ones, we can recreate it from your sketch. We have limited graphic art skills, but we get the basics done, right? But if you send some very complicated process, you probably need to go to a graphic artist and get it made and then send it to us. Now, we generally don't charge for art. If we take on something that's going to take an hour or two worth of art and back and forth, then at that point we have to start charging for it. But I do want to say, great time to add. Many people go out and have a logo created. It's beautiful, it's amazing. The graphic art skills are beyond anything we have in our shop, and it's totally impractical for the size of stamp that they're wanting. They want to get it on a 1-inch tool, where it's going to take a 2.5, 3-inch tool. So I want people to take a lesson, not that I love the big corporations, but take a lesson from the big corporations, the Amazons, the Walmarts, the Toyotas, the Nikes. Look at their logos, look at how simple they are. I think those people with those billions of dollars might know something. Keep it simple. You want a brand, a logo that people connect with. I mean, that's when you're talking about a unique, specific logo. The majority of my customers go with the standard Maker's Mark oval. That's probably 75–80% of what we do.
Yeah, I was looking at this sales aid that you have here, and that's nice. I mean, you can put a name, a location, and you can add to it. Let me show you mine real quick. I'm sure you remember making mine, but my wife and I visited your booth in Prescott, and we just came up with some simple sketching and created the RL as a backward R. And I think what you're talking about, it's there. It's a simple ad. Definitely not a multi-billion-dollar business, but yet I think a simple stamp that translates very good. And I agree. I've seen some stamps that have like tons of wording and they're trying to squeeze everything in there. I've heard the saying less is more. I think when it comes to a logo stamp, that that may be the case.
Yeah, and we do stamps with amazing detail. You can see them on our picture gallery on our website. Most of those tools are in the 2-inch plus range. Not all of them, but they're on the larger side.
Yeah, so you've got some cool larger stamps here. I think and even that though, that's simple. That's your logo up there on your sign.
That was simple enough that I could put it together.
There you go. Okay. So I guess let's talk about timing. I sketch out my logo and send it to you. And if we have, I'll call it fluid conversation, where you're not waiting for responses. How long from beginning to the end to get a stamp in someone's hand?
Yeah, we generally respond to inquiries that same day. Occasionally it will roll into the next day depending on when you get to us. But once we agree on the details, once you've looked at the proof and approved it, once you've looked at the work order, the details of what we're doing, and you say, okay, we'll send you an electronic invoice. As soon as that invoice is paid, you're into the order queue, and you're about a week to 2 weeks to ship, and usually it's closer to 1 week from that point.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I got mine from when I finally approved the proposal. I think I had it in like 5 days, 6 days. So mine was pretty quick when I got it. I noticed you have some set stamps, some American flags and such that are, I think, really kind of cool. I was looking at this one here, and I don't know if I can get the focus here. Are there 50 stars there?
There literally are 50 stars in that stamp.
Wow, that's a lot of detail in a stamp that's, what, 1/2 by 3/4?
Yeah, about that,
5/8 by 3/4?
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, we're going to come around here in a second and talk about some of your stamps, and that you're not just in leather. You're doing wood, you're doing metal, blacksmith stuff. Before we get around to there, is there anything else that you want to cover?
I can't think of it, Robert. It's a process, and we try to make the process easy, simple, but it takes time. There's a lot of back and forth, and I think that's one of the things that separate us from some of the others, is that we're going to make sure that we get it right. We don't want to make a stamp that you wouldn't be proud to stamp, show to your fellow leather worker, and say, I recommend these guys. That's what keeps us in business, is people telling people. So we make sure that when we make a stamp, it looks good, and we both feel good about it.
Yeah, customer satisfaction is extremely important. I can tell you, I don't know how many times I've gotten a project 90% done, and it doesn't happen too often, but if it's not what I'm proud of, then I usually cut it up, put it in the trash. And I've had people say, how about seconds? And when I take your stamp, which is usually the last thing I do, and I put my mark on that, I'm not going to put that on a second, if it's not right. You feel the same way? Have you ever made a stamp and you get down to the proofing and you proof it and you're like, because you're going to try it on leather.
Yeah.
And have you ever gone back at that point?
It's a really interesting question. With years of experience, I've gotten much better at making the adjustments necessary to assure it's a good stamp. But every stamp we make, I inspect it, and we test it and we validate it. And part of the process is I'm looking at that stamp and I'm saying, hey, did I make the right adjustments so these guys out on the shop can make a great stamp from it? Fortunately, I've gotten good at it, and usually I do, but sometimes I'll look at a stamp and I'll go, that's not quite what we needed. Back to the drawing board, let's make some more adjustments, let's do it over again. We're just not going to let it out if I'm not happy with it, because if I'm not happy with it, you're not happy with it.
All right, so what are we looking at here, Tim, when we talk about Blacksmith?
Okay, great. So blacksmiths, knife makers are very much like leather workers. They want to put their brand on their product. So here's an example. I don't know how well the camera will pick it up.
Let's take a look here. Okay, yeah.
So this hammer is made by a famous blacksmith called Brent Bailey. Brent Bailey Forge, I believe, is the business. He was kind enough to put his maker's mark on there along with mine, just to illustrate. This is, by the way, this is a work of art and a very functional hammer. One of the best in the business, Brent Bailey. But it's an example of, you know, what a blacksmith might do. Once again, we can take a look at the knife, okay?
So this autograph here, is that one of your stamps?
That is. I traded a couple stamps to this guy for this beautiful knife, and you can see it is a beautiful knife. But again, knife makers want to stamp their product. And the nice thing about stamping a blade rather than etching it, some may be familiar with etching, is that stamp goes in deep and is permanent and won't wear and corrode.
Yeah, so I suppose, I mean, depending on the autograph and the size, you could do that on leather as well.
Sure.
Or you could do it on a silversmith or wherever you want to do it.
Sure. There's, much like the leather, this is a PDF that's available on the Blacksmith Knife Maker page, and it's an example of what we might be able to do. This is a good example of what people often do. These logos are simply to illustrate detail versus size.
I see.
We're always balancing these out. So you see 2 or 3 different sizes of the skull,
right,
for example.
Yeah.
There's a limit, and as you get bigger, your detail is going to show better, okay?
Sure.
But we could pull that off. It's just not quite as detailed as the bigger one.
Cool. So I see some stamps up here in the box.
Yeah.
What do we have here?
Yeah, and these are some stock stamps for knife makers, blacksmiths. Here's a U.S. flag, for example. Beautiful detail on that.
Yeah, I can see the individual stars there.
Yeah, there's all 50 stars are there, if you can
That's
believe
cool.
that.
Yeah, I believe you.
But, you know, these stamps are made from tool steel, hardened tool steel, so they're going to wear very, very well. It shocks me, to tell you the truth, the life we get out of these. How do I know what the life is? I don't, but they never come back. So okay. I say never, but occasionally somebody will wear one out, but it's rare.
All right, Tim, so we've gone through the process of how we create them, the ease of communicating, the fact that the product is made from U.S. materials in the United States, the timing of all that. Is there anything else that you would like to add here as a wrap-up on this short little interview?
Well, I'd just say thanks for giving me a few minutes. Really appreciate that, Robert. I think if we think we have the best product out there, a lot of people in the industry seem to confirm that. But what I think really stands out for us is the customer service, us working back and forth with the customer to make sure we get it right. We're not going to make it if it's not going to look good. If you can't take that stamp, put it in your leather, and be proud to show it to somebody else and recommend us to them, we don't want that stamp going out, and we're not going to let it go out.
No, that's good. No, I tell you what, I like supporting small business. Tim Purdy and his team create beautiful stamps, I think, in a quick time frame. There's a few Facebook pages that I'm on, and there's people all the time saying, you know, where do you get your maker's mark? And I see steel stamps come up on a regular basis. Occasionally I see somebody else, but then I also, it's disheartening. I see other people saying, oh, whatever you do, don't, you know, do, I would use like a fake name, like Bill Smith. Don't use Bill Smith because he's fake. He'll take your money, you'll never get anything. And so that is, you know, concerning. And the one thing that I will say, though, that on Facebook, that when I'm going through there, I always, you know, give a thumbs up for steel stamps. But I see a dozen or more names on a regular basis doing the same thing. So that's good. I've never once seen anybody bash steel stamps. I think that's a testament to the effort to produce a quality tool, something that people utilize. And like I said, I use it all the time because I mark every one of my projects with my name on it.
Right.
And much like you said, if the stamp isn't right, you're not going to send it out. If my product's not right, I'm not going to send it out.
Right.
So I appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it.